Hello, hello. It is early Tuesday today, early Tuesday afternoon, and today is election day in America. Um, I meant to do this yesterday, but I got sidetracked, so we're here now. Um, I wanted to kind of throw some things out there with how I think the race is going to go, uh, just for funsies to more or less kind of throw my hat in the ring and then kind of speak about the fallout and what I kind of foresee as the next 4 years with either candidate. So, first and foremost, this here is my current electoral map. I will let you know that I have taken some polls into account, some of the early vote returns as well, just based upon who's who's where in certain places. But also, there's a bit of gut going on in here. So I want to be perfectly clear. Like, don't take this as like some super scientific. Oh, you know, he has to win PA. So first and foremost, I'll start with the swing states. So Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, PA, North Carolina, Georgia. Arizona has shifted more in the Trump direction, so much so that the 270 to win map doesn't consider it a toss-up state anymore. So it's been allocated to Trump, and I would say more so that's because of the border situation there. Similar situation for Nevada. Nevada is tied and very close from all of the polling that I've seen. I kind of get the feeling that Nevada could kind of go either way, but I think it's probably going to lean Trump as well. Where I think the race is going to be is going to be decided at, it's going to be over on the East Coast. Pennsylvania for the Republicans is the key for them this election. From what I've been hearing with polls and just kind of some of the man on the street interviews and everything, I really get the feeling that Pennsylvania is going to narrowly go for Trump. That being said, that does not guarantee him victory, as you can see. The rest of it is going to be through the Sun Belt. So I believe the East Coast is going to be really determine a lot, and you will know more or less how this race is going to go by Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Whichever way those states have gone, by the time you go to bed, you will likely have a good idea who your president is going to be when you wake up in the morning. I think North Carolina is going to go to Kamala. And the reason for that is there's so much craziness going on with Mark Robertson and that candidacy that like I feel like it's probably gonna be a reverse situation of what you had with the Democrats and Biden, where Democrats was being pulled down on the down ballot because of Joe. And I think it's kind of one of those things where the average voter associates him with Trump and the chaos of the last Trump presidency. And, you know, I think they're probably turned off. Georgia is one I think is a toss up. That is the state that I reside in. I will say this. Since I lost my job, I've been doing odd jobs and different things to get by. So I've had an opportunity to kind of go to different areas of where I live in the state that I normally wouldn't go. And one thing I noticed is there's a lot of Trump support in various areas, such as the cities, whatnot. People have a bunch of different yard signs in neighborhoods you wouldn't think. Um, and the one thing Kamala, she does have a lot of support there as well, especially in certain cities, inner cities, like driving through certain parts of Atlanta. You see nothing but those Harris Wall signs. Same thing in Augusta. I would not be surprised if this one went to Trump, but as we've been getting closer to election day, I've been getting the feeling that she's probably gonna tip over and win it. That's just kind of my gut feeling initially. I felt that she would win North Carolina and lose Georgia. And as we've gotten closer to election day, I feel like there's a neck and neck race there, and I think because of what she's done with energizing women, and how she's been resonating in particular with women, I think that's probably going to be the difference that takes over the top. A lot of people I've been speaking to are not happy with the Biden administration, and I've met a lot of people who are voting third party that were some past Democrats, and I've met a lot of people who just simply say like, "Hey, look, I'm sitting it out." So those are the factors that kind of are played there. There are a lot of people who just are sitting it out. Those third party voters, contrary to popular belief, some of them were voting Democrat in the last election, but they're unhappy with the party, and I just would not see them voting for a Democrat. If those other options were there, I think they would just set it out. So the whole Jill Stein spoiled the election thing, nah. I've been voting third party for the last 3 cycles. I'm dissatisfied. Other people are dissatisfied. It is what it is. So going up to the blue wall, I think this is an interesting dynamic. And one that I'm kind of surprised by. Michigan has gone from leaning Trump to leaning Kamala, and I kind of am tentative with awarding it to her because so many Muslims have been turned off with the genocide, and her full-throated endorsement of the Israeli government, her commitment to continue shipping weapons and whatnot, is something that is going to play a role with those voters, and they're heavily concentrated in these parts up in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So they're a significant minority there. I'm kind of like I said, I actually don't have any friends or family in that area, so I'm going more or less with the pollsters on that one. The one that I think it could fly under the radar is Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, I do think, is more so leaning Trump. It is a slight toss-up in favor of Harris at the moment. The reason for that is I really truly believe that we're once again underestimating a lot of the Trump support. The media in like the last week or so has kind of speculated that there's a shy Harris voter, which is more or less a wife that's afraid to talk to her husband and disclose that she's gonna vote for Harris, which I don't think is really a thing in significant numbers. If you can't talk to your spouse, if you can't talk to your significant other, I feel like a relationship has deeper issues, but then again, that's also part of the reason why I'm not voting Democrat. Those relationship ads that they ran were disgusting to me. But that's a whole nother subject. So I think he does actually win that state. And I would say this: Wisconsin and Michigan are somewhat similar, but Wisconsin is typically more conservative leaning, which is why I awarded it to Trump. But the thing to keep in mind, say for instance, if you were to flip the situation, because if my recollection serves me, I believe there actually are more Muslims in Michigan as a percentage of the electorate than Wisconsin. There's a little bit more there. So if that actually does factor in more than what some of these posters have captured, you could potentially see a reverse of the scenario where I've got it laid out here, and that 5 electoral votes difference, like if you were to swap it going to Trump versus Harris and vice versa with Wisconsin, that would actually change the winner in my projection, and that would have, instead of a Harris win, a Trump win. So that is really the second place to watch come election night. I believe, like, if one candidate wins PA, North Carolina, Georgia, it's over. Like, whether it's Trump, whether it's Harris, you can go to sleep. That's going to be your president. If those states are split, it's going to be a tight race. I'm shooting this out here. This is just my gut. This is just my feeling. This is me kind of sticking my finger in the wind. But I would not be surprised if a lot of people, in terms of these posters, and even folks who've kind of made some predictions themselves, at least the way it plays out, I think there's something probably really obvious that's going to be really obvious in hindsight that a lot of us are missing. That is going to be the story of the election. It might be, maybe there is a shy Harris voter. Maybe Trump is overestimated. Maybe third parties did play a bigger role than anticipated. Maybe voter turnout is down. And that's something that I feel that actually does benefit the Republicans. Typically, like when voter turnout is down, because Republican voters tend to be what's the word? I'm searching for the word, but they tend to turn out and be more reliable in their turnout. So in elections where it's lower turnout, it generally favors them. But with Trump, there's no norms to rely on. No trends are safe with him, in my opinion. As for the next 4 years, the way I see it, if you were to have a second Trump presidency, it would be significant because it would be the first time since William Howard Taft where you had a president serve non-consecutive terms. I feel that with Trump, he would be in position to deliver on some of those campaign promises. So he's definitely going to extend the Trump tax cuts again. I think his presidency has some potential to be interesting in the way he seems to have gravitated towards some figures like Robert Kennedy in terms of health and environmental issues. He's also embraced figures like Elon, which I'll say this, I think Elon is a freaking dumbass. So I do think, first and foremost, in terms of all of the Project 2025 hysteria and whatnot, I don't see Trump enacting large parts of that. I don't see Trump trying to really gut the administrative state because that is the strength of the presidency. Um, you know, I could see Trump doing some reorganization of the federal government where, in order to try to keep his promise of shrinking and dealing with the deep state, he folds certain agencies into, he basically reorganizes the umbrella, more or less. Maybe cut some positions. Probably won't fund the IRS very well. So, things like that I could foresee in the Trump presidency. I think in terms of relationships with certain wars, it's going to be interesting because I could see where Trump moves to bring the Ukraine war to an end. Because that's something where I've seen where he said a few times he feels like the war is unnecessarily and needless, which I do agree with. That war is fighting for fighting's sake, in my opinion. Like, I don't see any major gains for U.S. geopolitical interests, and I see where it's only harmed us in the long run. Especially if de-dollarization accelerates in the next 10 years or so. I think that's probably the event that you can point to and say, like, yeah, this was the death nail in the coffin. Like, this was the road, the road to the end. But I could also see him doing the opposite in Israel and continuing to fund the Israelis. I could also see him trying to put pressure on Netanyahu to wrap it up before he even gets in office too, because I also don't think he wants to deal with that headache. I feel like his attitude would be one where it's kind of like, I'll give you money, go away, please stay out of sight, stay out the freaking news. I do not want this headache. That's kind of how I feel he would approach that situation and govern over it. I think overall with a second Trump term, unpredictability. I don't think he's very predictable in terms of, outside of certain policies that would serve the wealthy and businesses. I think there's going to be surprises left and right, just as there was the first time. So, that, and you probably can look forward to a few mean tweets at 2:30 in the morning. If Miss Harris were to win, this is the thing. I think, one, she would essentially be hamstrung. I've said this in a previous video, with her campaign promises, like the increased tax deduction of like $50K and the $25,000 down payment assistance, the $6,000 child credit. I don't think any of that passes. That all has to go through Congress, and at the moment, the House is definitely going to be retained by Republicans, and it's looking like there's from what I saw this morning, there's a 2/3 chance that Republicans are going to hold the Senate. So that would mean you would have a legislature that would be all Republican and an executive who is Democrat. I don't really foresee her trying to use the bully pulpit to twist arms and negotiate and things like that. I could be wrong. So I think it would be pretty much a presidency where you probably get some executive orders that address and tweak a few little things. I could see her opening the border back up. And I don't see any signature legislation coming, at least in the first 2 years of her presidency. So I feel like essentially, I'll say this because I know I've been critical of her, but I do feel like she's being cliffed. And for those who don't know, cliffing is when essentially somebody who is a minority or underrepresented group is put in a prominent position and essentially set up to fail, i.e., getting pushed off the cliff. I do feel like that in terms of how a lot of stuff transpired and how it would play out. So I think she would have a really tough time getting anything done for at least the first 2 years. I don't see anything significant in terms of legislation getting through. I see her being just as hawkish, if not more, with the foreign conflicts. So I don't see us pulling out or trying to bring Ukraine to an end. I don't see the same for Gaza. And I think it's pretty much what you have now with the Biden administration is probably going to be a lot of what her administration looks like. I mean, from what we've heard, she's been in the room. She's been a part of these major discussions and conversations. So, it's more the same, more or less. I do not foresee Roe v. Wade being codified. And I do foresee that at the end of 4 years, with Roe v. Wade being the big corners, codifying Roe v. Wade being such a big part of her campaign, I do see that going undone. And I wonder how that plays out for Democrats in 28. But then again, that's also been something that that Democrats have been running on for a while now, but haven't done. Even going back to before everything was overturned with the decision, back all the way back to President Obama. So yeah, if Trump wins, more or less, it's going to be erratic. It's going to be chaotic. He's definitely going to act in his best interest, and you're going to see policy that benefits the rich, benefits corporations and big business. If Kamala wins, you're probably going to see more or less a stagnant and locked government. No real significant legislative change is going to get through due to a divided House and a Republican House and Senate that's divided from the White House. So budget reconciliations, things like that will probably get passed, and not much else. 2028, the midterms could potentially set up for Democrats to take back the Senate. I believe it's going to be mostly Republicans up for re-election, if I'm recalling correctly. And not 28, I'm sorry, 26. In 2026, I think it's going to be mostly Republicans up for re-election. And, if they can make some gains in the House, it could be potential on the back end of her first term to get a few significant bills pushed through before campaign season starts up again. But that's me kind of putting my finger to the wind and reading some tea leaves. Let me know let me know what you think. You think my map is trash? It's bull? I'm just pulling stuff out my butt, whatever. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Peace. Hope y'all have a great one.